Hello and welcome to Season 4, Episode 15 of Logicast, the AWS News Podcast brought to you by Logicata. I'm Carl Robinson, CEO and co-founder of Logicata, and I'm joined today by none other than, drum roll, I wish I could make a drum roll noise with my mouth, but it's not going to come across very well. But I am joined by none other than, yes, you've guessed it, lead cloud engineer John Goodall. How are you doing today, John?
My brain hurts.
Did I get your job title right this week, though, at least?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Good,
yes.
good, because you called me out on that last week. So, yeah. And I haven't got it written down anyway. I just remembered it, which is fabulous.
I mean, it's on the org chart. It's on the org.
Yeah, I know, but I don't have that in my office.
Why not?
Well, maybe I should. Yeah, maybe I should. Yeah.
Oh dear.
So, what have you been up to?
Oh, today, SA Pro revision, done practice tests and stuff, and my head hurts now.
Passing?
First one, no, but I was interrupted 4-5 times by deliveries and the neighbor and people popping out. Just like, oh, go away. I feel bad for every delivery guy because he was the fourth or fifth one to come and ring the doorbell. And I genuinely shout, I think the windows are shut. I don't know how much you heard, but I genuinely shouted, oh, for crying out loud, because it was so many times. So that one, no. I did another one, and QA.com, formerly Cloud Academy, allegedly they have more than just the 70 odd questions. I saw a few repeats, but I saw some unique ones in the second run round, and that was 88%. So that's a pass. If I get 80 tomorrow, I'll be quite happy. But yeah, they make my head hurt because it's a lot of concentrating.
Well, I'm glad you're the one who's brought this up on the podcast, that you are sitting SA Pro tomorrow, because no pressure. But tune in again next week if you'd like to hear whether or not John passed his Solutions Architect professional exam on Tuesday, the 15th of April. Anyway, on that note, I really ought to introduce our guest today. So we are joined today by Tigran Gevorgian. How are you doing today, Tigran?
Hey guys, thank you for having me. I'm fine, and I'm really excited to be here and to talk about AWS related things. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Tell us a bit about what you do for a living, what you do for the AWS community, Tigran.
For a living, I'm a regular tech guy who is also messed up with management stuff. Actually, I recently joined to a great company called Provectus. It's outsourcing company which is building infrastructures for different clients, and my position is practice leader. It's kind of engineering manager in other words. And by the way, I am also doing some technical stuff, and I love that because I don't want to forget how to write a code, how to do deployments and stuff like that. So yeah, partially I'm doing people management, building teams, train teammates, and on the other side, I'm doing some architectural stuff. I'm doing some coding, etc. And also, I'm a member of user group Armenia. You know that there is a concept of user groups from AWS, and we have a Web 1 in Armenia, Yerevan. I'm a core member of that group, and I'm one of the organizers of AWS events in Yerevan, Armenia, and I'm also AWS community builder. I applied for the third year applications, and I hope I will be selected for that. Yeah, finger crossed.
We're all waiting. We're all waiting for that news.
Yeah, and a couple of words about our community day. We did first community day in Caucasus region last September, and actually we are going to repeat that and do another one in May. And we have great guests like Jeff Parr is visiting us, and also Anton Babenko. He's a great guy from AWS community, and we have lots of great speakers out there. So shout out to my team, and I I would like to invite you. I don't know if you could make it visit Armenia and join to our community day, but yeah, anyway, you are welcome.
Sounds cool. I've never been to Armenia. I have worked with someone in Armenia. I worked with a consultant in Armenia who was based in Yerevan, actually, for a few years back, but never actually been able to visit the place. But you're not in Armenia, right? You're in the US right now.
Yeah, but like we are temporarily here in Boston,
Okay.
and as soon as my wife she's finished with her study, we will be back to our home country.
Mm-hmm. So are you flying back and forth to do the user group then?
Actually, I'm doing that now online. My
Okay.
participation is mostly online, like reviewing the speakers and the speeches and writing here and there for some organizational stuff and so on. I'm not flying here and back. Yeah. And
Well, I
it
thought
works.
maybe you were. I thought maybe you were going to be the most committed user group leader we've had, because we did have a guy in Australia that was flying, I think, from Melbourne to Brisbane to
Something
run
like
the
that, yeah.
or the other way
Oh.
round. He lives and works in one city and runs a user group in another city, and he actually had to fly from his home city to his user group city
Yeah,
to run
but
the
to
user
him
group.
it was only a little flight. It's only an hour and a half.
It
Yeah,
would be
well,
nightmare
yeah.
for me. Like it's not
Yeah.
for me. It would be nightmare.
It's a long
for
way.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a long way from Boston to Armenia. I bet you can't even. Can you fly direct or?
No, you will have transit flights, and it
Yeah.
could take up to 24 hours. So
Yeah, that would be big commitment for a user group. And I'm not saying that you're not committed, Tigran. I'm sure you're incredibly committed. But yeah, to have a multi-leg flight, it would take over 24 hours just to run a user group, that would be going above and beyond.
There's a lot involved behind the scenes as well, as we both know, right? I mean,
indeed.
Yep.
Yeah.
I do quite a lot of the same sort of stuff in terms of reviewing submissions and that kind of thing, and it's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot because you are doing a couple of sessions. You are reviewing the slides. You are reviewing the speeches. You are trying to find out who is the best, which speech is the best, and so on. And also there are lots of paperwork there, and we have a really good group, really good people there, and like we are always trying to do all of that as a team, and it works out.
Great. Well, one tip for you: if Jeff's coming all the way to Armenia, make sure he brings his exclusive Jeff Bar Builder card, so that your user group members or your community day attendees can meet Jeff and get his Builder card, which is an all-powerful starter card in the AWS Builder Cards game.
Oh.
But you can only get it when you meet him. So make sure he brings a pack of those with him to Armenia.
I will remind our leader Christina to like ask Jeff, and yeah, actually he not just visiting, and Jeff will have a keynote session.
Cool. That sounds amazing. So congratulations for organizing that.
Thank
we will
you.
put a link to the AWS Armenia Community Day in the show notes for the podcast. Speaking of which, let's get back on topic. Those of you who are regular listeners to the podcast will know that we're not here to talk about AWS community activities, although we often do, because that's what we do outside of our day jobs. But we are here to talk about AWS news. Once a week, I curate a list of AWS news, which I share via my weekly AWS News Roundup newsletter. And then John and I pick a selection of the articles that we'd like to talk about with our guest. So we do, of course, have such a selection of articles for this week's episode. And the first one is we are diving straight into AI. Sometimes we try and avoid it, but, you know, it is the topic of the moment. And last week just seemed to be LLM week. There were so many announcements about new LLMs becoming available through Bedrock and various other Amazon services. So this week, we've got an article about Meta's Llama 4 models now becoming available on Amazon Web Services through SageMaker JumpStart. Not through Bedrock yet, but that's coming soon. But Meta's Llama 4 models, and I think they've got some funny names like, where are they? A Scout 17B and Maverick 17B. These models are now available in SageMaker JumpStart. So, John, what was it that jumped out about this article to you?
Oh, for start, the stupid names, right? Because we said this before. I forget who said this, but a previous guest a few weeks ago said it's as bad as the USB naming convention now at this point. I mean, we were talking about Claude specifically at the time because that was Claude. You know, you got 2 and then 3 Haiku, Sonnet, and Opus, and then 3.5 Sonnet and 3.7 Sonnet, but they
No
don't have Haiku.
3.6.
No 3.6, and they don't have Haiku or Opus for 3.5 and 7. What the hell's going on there? And Llama's exactly the same. Okay, it's a silly name because it says Llama rather than Claude. So this is an animal rather than a Frenchman, but okay. And this is Llama 4 Scout 17B. What engineer came up with that and why weren't they shot? Like, Jesus Christ! It was the marketing intern with access to ChatGPT, ironically, that named this clearly because he had 10 minutes to come up with a name. We went, that'll do. But that was partly that, and partly I picked it on this because we haven't seen SageMaker been getting a lot of love lately. It's all been LLMs, Bedrock. What was the Chinese one? DeepSeek, that you could have as a custom model and then it became a managed model. But we haven't really been hearing a lot about SageMaker getting access to new models. And that's really interesting because SageMaker's been around for a long time, particularly compared to Bedrock, but a long time generally. And now it's got some new models to play with, which is great if that's a thing that you need. Now, the primary difference, of course, between Bedrock and SageMaker is SageMaker, you have to do a lot more yourself, right? Bedrock is an API or a series of APIs. And here's the models and you sort of interact with them. Brilliant. SageMaker, you can retrain, you can do distillation yourself, you interact with Jupyter notebooks. And if you're not familiar with them, they're a little bit esoteric, but they do make sense. So I just thought this was quite interesting because, like I say, we haven't seen SageMaker getting a lot of love lately. And it seems to be that it's not being ignored, which is really good. I don't particularly care for the models. It's lots of the models seem to do lots of the same things. Just some do certain cases slightly better than others. Because this one talks about being more accessible, more cost effective, using fewer compute resources, which is what they're all trying to do anyway. And it's using which expert parts of its brain, which I don't like this terminology at all. I don't want to anthropomorphize a big lump of code, but it can kind of choose the right area of its code base effectively to use to be more efficient. And that's quite interesting and quite important because I saw a thing on LinkedIn the other day from, I think it was Matt Carey, I don't know if he's been on the podcast, but he's spoken at our user group. And he said something along the lines of, even if they've got access to X number of million tokens or record sets or whatever it was, they can only reason with a few tens of thousands. So that's quite interesting because if it's going, I need to go into this area, it's incredibly powerful that it can do that. But yeah, that was nice to see that it's coming somewhere other than Bedrock for a change.
You think we've got a bit of an arms race going on here for who can stuff the most models into their marketplaces? Obviously, Azure have got the Azure AI Foundry, which came later to the market than Bedrock, as I understand it. But are we seeing a bit of an arms race here of who can announce the most models the quickest?
I think that's just a reiteration of the same who can do the most things that we've seen from every cloud provider for 20 years now getting on.
What are your thoughts on this, Tigran?
So I think that it's a good stuff because when I saw this article and those news, I thought myself that it's great for like a couple of aspects. First of all, like cost effectiveness, it's great. Like as they are saying, like if you are just using a couple of parts of the model and not the whole, you can like save some money, and also like to use that smarter compute and also like be able to work with images and text is great altogether. And like my main thoughts here are like about market. If they are able to be competitive and to provide more models like this, it could be possible to have another models cheaper and have like stuff most cost effective. And yeah, if they do this, people try, people like this, people work on the models, and the other models will came into the market, and it will lower the prices. It will mature the smarter use of compute, and also maybe bring some other capabilities and functionality to those models of like models.
Absolutely. Well, pricing is actually a nice segue into our second article for this week,
It's
which
almost
is
like we've
all about
practiced this.
Yeah, I know, it's good, isn't it? It's like, yeah. It's not off the cuff at all. Our second article for this week is an article from the AWS Machine Learning blog, and it's all about prompting for the best price performance, hence the nice segue. Obviously, choice of model is one way to keep costs down. No point using a highly capable multimodal model if all you want to do is generate text. But also prompting, apparently, is a way to optimize the price performance of your AI queries as well. John, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, my initial thought is I want to get you 3 or 4 alcoholic beverages in, and then hear high performance multimodal model. See how many times you can say that.
Yeah, prompting for the best price performance on a high performance multimodal model. There we go. My teeth are still in, so yeah.
Just make sure, yeah.
It sounds like a challenge even for English native speakers.
Yeah, it's not easy. Not easy what I just did.
So this is an interesting article because it does talk about efficient prompting, but the first thing it talks about is stop using OpenAI and use Nova instead. Here's why. So it's not just making your prompts more efficient. It's talking about here's why you want to move from the GPT frameworks and the models to the Nova models instead. And the first highlight is here is your cost per token, effectively. And GPT-4 and 4 Mini are $2.50 per million input tokens and 15 cents per million input tokens, and $10 for outputs and 60 cents for outputs, kind of respectively. And then you look at the Nova Micro, and Pro models, and the costs are significantly less, right? Nova Pro is 80 cents per million input tokens versus GPT-4o's $2.50. So that's significantly less. And that's kind of like, well, why would you want to bother moving from GPT? GPT got there first. GPT-4 is really good. And for casual users like us, I'm going to call myself a casual user in this because I use ChatGPT. I use the free version. So cost to me is irrelevant because I use the free version. And when I run out of my freemium enhanced reasoning for the day because I haven't paid for it, I use a different one. Like I don't do them. I don't use them enough to warrant really paying for any of this. So I just kind of move around. This article's not for me, right? It's for people putting huge amounts of data through these sorts of things. And it talks about, well, who's that going to be? It's going to be global customer support people, large scale document analysis, people just running loads of tokens through, right? And a token is a word or a part of a word or a series of words in some cases. So you need to worry about your costs. So why do you want to move from OpenAI to Nova? Well, one, because Amazon doesn't like the idea that anyone else could make money, so you should give them your money instead. That's the first reason. And the second is because it's cheaper. But the way you prompt these things is slightly different. And it gives you some kind of examples. And to be fair, the article doesn't bash GPT saying it's terrible and it's expensive and it's this and it's that. It's just we're cheaper and here's how you use our system better effectively. Because the GPT prompts are kind of how I use it, which is you will be given this. Your task is that. Give me these outputs. Whereas Nova seems to want to be told what it is first. It needs to be given a bit more context and be given a sort of persona, if that's the right word, and then tell it what you want. And it gives you a somewhat better response. So I don't know if GPT works like that. I'm not a prompt engineer by any measure. I might ask one if I can find one. That isn't already given a conference talk about this because that's half their job these days. But it's an interesting one to go through. If you're doing these large amounts of analysis, it's worth looking at this because you've got your workflow built around GPT. That's great, and I'm sure that works for you. But you could save, in theory, huge amounts of money with a little bit of engineering time to just work your prompts slightly differently by using another model, Nova or otherwise.
Tigran, your thoughts on this?
Actually, I've never used Nova, and I actually listen lots of when people using ChatGPT as a base for their AI applications, like to have them as a base. And actually, I don't know how it will work out, because as John shared, the information Nova seems to be cheaper, and the AWS trying to attract businesses and potential customers with the prices. But actually, I have concerns about, like, if businesses build their prompting and some customer-based applications already on GPT, how smooth will be the transition from GPT to Nova? We don't know. But actually, if they try Nova and like they try new prompting methods, maybe it will be beneficial. So it's worth testing and try to go.
I suppose you could say, Nova, here are my GPT prompts. Can you please rewrite them for yourself? I'm not sure how effective that would be, but yeah.
I think your first line in your response, Tigran, was probably kind of who this is aimed at. It's the don't know many people or anybody using Nova, so they're going to put a lot of just stuff out about here's Nova, come use our models.
Yep.
So this is marketing as much as it's anything else, but then so it's half of what AWS puts out.
Yeah. Do you think they're missing a trick that it's not as easy to play around with Amazon models as it is to play around with things like GPT? Because obviously GPT has ChatGPT. If you want to play around with Amazon models, you've really got to log in and go to Bedrock to find the playgrounds, or you've
That's
got to
an
go
Amazon
into...
problem generally.
Yeah.
An Amazon problem generally. They have this with a lot of their services. GPT is the model behind ChatGPT, but Chat is the application. You can do other things with it, right? You don't have to use, it's ChatGPT. No, I'm using the GPT model. I'm not using the chat interface. That's just an interface. Amazon has this problem with a lot of things, with a lot of their services. If you want to just play with them, at least with the Bedrock stuff, you have Party Rock as a thing, which you could use, but that's quite engineering still. Or you have to log into the console. And that's been the case for a lot of their services for a while, because it's aimed at engineers still, rather than general public.
Indeed.
Or builders, as they'd like to call us all.
Builders, yeah, not citizens. Yeah, I was trying to find the appropriate word for the not the opposite of a builder, but a different persona. But anyway, on that note, let's move along to our third article for this week. This is an article on the Hacker News about a SSM flaw which has been patched. So Amazon EC2 SSM agent flaw patched after privilege escalation via path traversal. Another one which is a bit of a mouthful in terms of the title. But Tigran, I know that security is a specific area of interest for you. So what are your thoughts on this SSM flaw?
Actually, I wasn't surprised reading this article, because actually what's security? It's always about improvement, and you saw lots of vulnerabilities and threats and stuff like that. And what's important that you have to monitor all that stuff to catch the vulnerabilities and to fix them. So for this particular SSM vulnerability, it sounds like it's kind of like vulnerability which be executed with the elevated privileges, that you could elevate privileges, trickings with some directories and folders and stuff. And the great thing that people could catch it, and Amazon could fix it real quick. And here comes other thoughts for me, because I'm but sometimes working with some startups and helping them to pass, for example, SOC 2 certifications and stuff. And what's interesting here, that even in startups or other companies, security isn't top priority. Efficiency is priority, cost effectiveness is priority, but like security, it's so. For example, I know that I remember when I was working in one of companies, and there were identified one very huge leak in one of the Linux distributions. I don't remember now the name of the thread and how they fixed that, but I remember that even if the security team of that particular company knows about that security leak, they didn't handle that as a high priority and trying to like do updates and get rid of that. So yeah, so my thoughts here are that security is top priority, and we always need to update our OS and our related applications. And it's great that companies like AWS and who are providers of some application and tools, they are doing their best to patches, to do updates, and to make it working.
John, anything to add on that one?
So, yeah, I mean, this particular vulnerability is a bit of a kind of meh sort of vulnerability, because the actual vulnerability was if you had already compromised a server and managed to upload something to it. That's the thing you've got to do first. You could run an SSM document which could do what they call path traversal to get out of where it's initially running, right? So for those of you familiar with, let's say, FTP servers, that's one of the things that's kind of an issue there as well, is you can bind a user to its home directory and anything beneath it, but can't kind of go above it and go out, or you can not do that if that's appropriate for your use case. In this case, the SSM agent wasn't bound to its starting directory when it was running documents. Okay, this doesn't apply to Session Manager, because whilst that uses the agent, that works slightly differently. So this doesn't apply to Session Manager, which I'm a big fan of, but that's by the by. What this meant was, if you already managed to put some sort of malicious executable on a server, you could also then execute that using an SSM document by going up and down the paths in the tree, right? So it's kind of you've got to jump through a number of hoops to actually exploit this in the first place, and it's now been patched as well as of a couple of weeks ago now, which is good. So I'm not massively worried about this as an issue per se, because you've got to jump through several hoops to get this to work. AWS did release a response to this, which was a little bit kind of on the nose. I think it was okay. So we fixed this, but it wasn't actually privilege escalation herder, because it already, you couldn't escalate without doing extra things. Okay, whatever. Like, you didn't need to put that in. It was just meh. But worth knowing as well that if you're already running version 3.3.18.02 or higher, it's already fixed for you. If you're running lower than that, just update to that version. And depending on how you've rolled the SSM agent out to your estate, if you've used one of the quick access, quick start models, for instance, it will be updating itself pretty regularly anyway. So just go make sure that your agents are up to date.
Cool. On that note, let's move along to our fourth article for this week. This is an article from the AWS Big Data blog about correlating telemetry data with Amazon OpenSearch service and Amazon Managed Grafana. Funny that, isn't it? That Amazon would be the word that I would fumble on with all of those other words in that title. But yeah, this is all about correlating telemetry data with OpenSearch and Managed Grafana. So, John, thoughts on this?
It's a lot of work to get telemetry data out of Kubernetes. It's a lot of work, and that's kind of my issue with this. This is a great blog post, and I like Grafana, I like OpenSearch, and if you look at the diagram, it's talking about at the core of this architecture, and I'm going to read it a little bit verbatim here, are applications composed of microservices running on Kubernetes. It's a lot of effort. This is a lot of effort. Just use X-Ray and do it serverlessly and move on with your life. Crying out loud.
But would X-Ray give you everything that this is going to give you, or is this going to give you more?
I think this gives you more. This does, but this costs a lot of money to run. Right? Let's be really obvious about this, because you're using OpenSearch, and that's not cheap, and you're using Managed Grafana, and that's not as expensive as OpenSearch, but that's not cheap either. Right? So yes, troubleshooting large, distributed, complex enterprise applications and tracing requests through services and all this kind of jazz is why things like X-Ray exist, which I'm a big fan of. But if you can't use that, then this is something worth looking at if you do have these big distributed applications that happen to be running in the world's worst container system ever. But no, sorry, no, that would be what was the one that Red Hat made?
Oh, yeah, I
forget the name of it.
Yeah.
The world's second worst container system.
Rosa, is it Rosa or something like that?
Red Hat Open. So yeah, I forget what it's called specifically. But so this is worth reading if you want to put yourself to sleep, because it's really, really dry. It's well written. It's a good blog post. I must admit, I skimmed it and just kind of went, yeah, okay. But it's not going to be cheap to run, right? So if you do want to go and have a play with this, do make sure you get rid of it afterwards. If you do need to be able to get this telemetry out of things like Kubernetes, there's other ways of doing this as well. There's absolutely other ways of doing this. You can think about things like Prometheus as well. But go have a read. I don't have anything really to say on the content. Just this is a lot of work to get the telemetry data out, and it's very expensive.
What are your thoughts on it, Tigran? Anything more positive to say about it?
Actually, I this time I totally agree with John, because we calculated recently using OpenSearch service, Amazon OpenSearch service, and just trying to run it by containers like OpenSearch, dashboard, etc. And actually, our calculation was that OpenSearch service is twice expensive than we would do it, let's say, customly, in a custom way, with custom deployments. And I think that you could play around and use all of these three services: OpenSearch service, managed Prometheus, and managed Grafana. But actually, it would be cheaper to use like just Prometheus, just OpenSearch with its satellites, applications like dashboards, etc., and even like custom Grafana. And in some of my projects, we just use Datadog for this monitoring, also tracing, and even log collection, some sort of log collection, and also application monitoring. So yeah, it could be a good bundle of the services, but this is for sure not a cheap one. And yeah, we can look just for the alternatives.
It's rare to hear Datadog considered as a more cost-effective alternative, because it's usually the really expensive one.
So you think this would be more expensive than using Datadog?
It depends how you use Datadog, because like in one of my projects, we quarterly were doing cost optimization on Datadog itself. Because if you just forget to disable something there, it could cost you lots of money.
Yep, we've seen that too. But I guess the advantage of a Datadog over something like this is they've built it, and even if it does cost a little bit more, you don't have to. It's already built, so I guess it's well worth doing the justification on both of those to see what's going to be the most cost-effective, but also get you to the result quickest. So
the only real gripe I have with this article, I've just spied the level that they've put it at, and for the unfamiliar, AWS put levels on everything that they're involved with, right? Whether that's blogs, that's talks, that's whatever. That's 100, 200, 300, and 400, which is kind of based, I think, on the American education system of, a biology 101 being an introductory course and 401 being the start of an advanced course or an expert course, whatever it is. This is a 200 level blog. No, it isn't.
But again, like if we are like thinking about like managed services, the cost, and the other part, like if the company has money and like I think it's always good to use managed services, and you save engineering time. It's also like about cost, about time, and like yeah, it's about time, money, and the solution.
Yeah. and remembering that the engineers that you're already paying still cost money because it's going to take their time to build this stuff. So,
Yep.
Cool. Okay, well, on that note, let's move along to our final article for this week. This is more of a feature announcement, this one, but there's been some new guidance announced in the Well-Architected tool. So there's a recent update to the Well-Architected framework. I think feature updates and improvements for 78 new best practices were announced last week. So Tigran, I know this is an area of interest for you as well. What were your thoughts here? I don't expect you to name all 78 new features because we'd be here all night if we try and do that. But was there anything exciting standing out for you?
I couldn't name all of them, but actually I would say that I probably I would go to and like revisit and redo my training and certification for AWS Well-Architect. I did one back in 2022, I think. And by that time, there were less pillars there. And now there are more pillars in that Well-Architected framework. And actually, I'm not going to like do some specific comments here or share some specific information about that, because we have John here, and I believe he will do. But overall, I would say that it's great that they are continuing working on the adding pillars or some new things on the Well-Architected framework, and I will encourage solution architects, DevOps people, Cloud Ops, and all people who are working on AWS environments go and take these kind of trainings, because it's very beneficial. Because I saw some people or some companies who are not aware about the best practices and pillars. They could go and build production, for example, in default VPCs, and they don't even imagine, and they don't know why it's wrong, or why it's a wrong approach to build not secure networking or environments. So yeah, that's great that AWS they continue to contribute in Well-Architected framework and also adding pillars and having new functionality and I don't know, new best practices there.
Yeah, I think it'll be the sustainability pillar added since you did it back in 2022, I think. Yeah. Anyway, John, your thoughts on this one?
I don't have any particular thoughts on the well-architected framework because it's just a framework. It's hard to have thoughts about it, right? AWS is the provider of the cloud, of this particular cloud infrastructure, and it's their guidance on how to use it most effectively. Cool, makes sense. And it also makes sense that they change that and keep it up to date every so often as well. Wonderful. I take real exception with the well-architected tool because for the uninitiated, it is not universally available. Okay. It is not universally available. It is one of the few services that is actually tied to your support subscription level within your account, right? So you do not get full access to the well-architected tool unless you're paying for, I believe it is business support, which is not cheap, right? Because you've got free, which is what most people have because I don't want support, and then you've got what do they call it, pro, I think, which is like your freelancer sort of level, and then you've got business and you've got enterprise. You must have business support on an account in order to have access to Well-Architected tool within that account. Excuse me. It gets worse than that though, because it's one of the weird services that, okay, lots of services operate on an account by account level, but this is based on your spend within that account, on how much it costs you, okay? And it's tied to your support contract, and unless you have enterprise support, you have to have a separate support agreement for every single account within your organization. So if you want to do well-architected across multiple production workload accounts per the best practice, you're going to pay through the nose for this, and that really annoys me.
John, but don't you think that it's, if we think of just a source of best practices and source of like learning of best practices, it's a great source and it's a great tool Like
The framework's good. I like
yeah,
the framework. I like the tool, believe it or not. I like the tool. I don't like the, frankly, predatory pricing structure that it's got.
I see.
But don't you think in a well-architected environment you ought to have access to AWS support? I don't
No, you
know
should
which
have
pillar
access
that
to
would come
John
under.
support through Logic Carter.
Well, there is that. Yeah, there is that. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming partner-led enterprise support is acceptable level of support for the well-architected tool. But
yeah, because when you get into enterprise, it's the billing model for support is funny because free is obviously free. Pro is pro, and it's not horribly expensive. And then business is more. But pro and business, you have to enable it per account within your org, and that might be okay if you've got one production workload account that you care about. But then you get to enterprise, and it's even more money. But then it's just magically on for all of your accounts. So if your developers are having a problem and they only have access to dev, you don't have to turn on support so they can ask a question to then turn it off again. They just got it, and it's based on the spend of the whole org, which makes sense because the accounts you largely want it on are your product accounts, and they're going to be the ones costing you the money anyway.
well, there we go. AWS, please democratize access to the well-architected tool. Yeah, we don't have to pay for business support to use it. I think it's a summary of where you're coming from there, John.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Or I
Cool.
mean, I don't mind. I don't like the fact that the tool is behind the support contract at all, right? I'd like it to be a pay-per-use service so you can go and turn it on. I'd like that rather than it being behind another service. But if it has to be behind another service, make the billing for support more sensible.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yep.
Well, on that note, we have reached the end of our time for season 4, episode 15 of Logicast. So it remains just for me to thank you, John, as always, for your insights and your occasional rants about the way things are. And thank you very much, Tigran, for joining us. It's been great to hear your insights and hear about the great work that you're doing with the AWS Community Day and the AWS User Group in Armenia. So we've really enjoyed having you on as our guest. If you're still listening and you've enjoyed the podcast, we are available to download from wherever you get your podcasts. And if you'd like to see Tigran's amazing merch that he's wearing, his US sport merch, I think it was we worked out as a Boston Celtics baseball cap, and I forget the hockey team, but it's definitely not the Boston hockey team. Was it Philadelphia? No, it's Chicago.
It's Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago's hockey team. There we go. Very colorful indeed. So you can see all of that on our YouTube channel. Thank you very much for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode for you. In the meantime, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Cheers.
Thank you, guys. Bye.